What if I told you that the Lungu family's biggest secret has finally surfaced? A secret deal Esther Lungu tried to hide, and a cryptic message from Edgar Lungu himself, pointing straight to Zambia's 2026 elections. Is this just political strategy or something much darker? Tonight, we uncover the hidden deal, the warning to President HH, and what it means for Zambia's future. Stay with us, because the story you're about to hear could change everything. The Lungu family saga takes a shocking new turn. Sources suggest that Esther Lungu may be linked to a secret deal connected to Zambia's political future, and a cryptic 2026 election warning, allegedly tied to Edgar Lungu, has left the nation divided. In this video, we break down what Esther Lungu really tried to hide, the truth about the secret deal and its link to Zambia's politics, why HH and the ruling government are watching closely, how this warning could reshape Zambia's 2026 elections. This is more than just politics, it's a battle for Zambia's future. What Esther Lungu hid. Behind the glamorous facade of Zambia's former First Lady lies a web of financial transactions that has rocked the nation to its core. Esther Lungu, wife of former President Edgar Lungu, has become the center of one of Zambia's most explosive corruption scandals, with revelations that have sent shockwaves through the political establishment. What started as whispers in diplomatic corridors has erupted into a full-blown legal earthquake that threatens to reshape Zambia's political landscape forever. The story that has captivated millions begins with a simple question: how does a public servant's wife acquire luxury properties worth millions of kwacha? The answer has unraveled a complex tapestry of alleged money laundering, fraudulent transactions, and political maneuvering that extends far beyond personal enrichment. This isn't just another corruption case, it's a window into how power operates in modern Africa, where the lines between public service and private gain have become dangerously blurred. As we peel back the layers of this intricate political drama, we discover that Esther Lungu's legal troubles are merely the tip of an iceberg that threatens to sink not just individual careers, but the very foundations of Zambian democracy. The implications reach far beyond one woman's alleged crimes, touching on questions of accountability, justice, and the future direction of a nation still struggling to define its democratic identity. The haunting question that keeps political observers awake at night is this: if these allegations are true, what other secrets lie buried in the corridors of power? And more importantly, what does this mean for Zambia's fragile democracy as it approaches the crucial 2026 elections? The secret deal exposed. The revelation that has shaken Zambia's political foundation centers on what prosecutors describe as one of the most sophisticated financial schemes ever uncovered in the country's recent history. At the heart of this scandal lies Esther Lungu's acquisition of 15 luxury double-story flats valued at a staggering $66 million, a sum that would make even seasoned politicians gasp. But this isn't just about expensive real estate. The Economic and Financial Crimes Court has declared these properties as proceeds of crime, painting a picture of systematic financial manipulation that allegedly spanned years. The court's September 27, 2024 ruling didn't just order the forfeiture of these assets, it exposed a labyrinthine network of transactions that prosecutors argue were designed to obscure the true source of the funds. The secret deal goes deeper than initially imagined. Court documents reveal that Esther Lungu allegedly used sophisticated methods to acquire these properties, including hiring third parties to enter into lease agreements worth over $4 million. This wasn't amateur hour corruption. This was allegedly a well-orchestrated scheme involving multiple layers of financial engineering designed to create plausible deniability. What makes this case particularly explosive is the involvement of what prosecutors describe as a $400,000 mystery. Esther Lungu stands accused of being entrusted with keeping the substantial sum in safe custody, arrangement that has raised more questions than answers. Critics have pointedly asked, she is a bank? This sardonic question captures the public's bewilderment at how a First Lady could become a repository for such massive amounts of cash without proper documentation or legal justification. The secret deal allegedly extends beyond real estate into more shadowy territory. Intelligence sources suggest that the $4.8 million property case involves money laundering allegations where Esther Lungu purportedly paid approximately $45,000 per month through indirect channels. This pattern of indirect payments has become a signature element in what prosecutors describe as a deliberate attempt to obscure financial trails. Perhaps most damaging to the Lungu family's reputation is the allegation that Esther Lungu gave substantial sums to relatives, including a niece, to keep in case she is found with that cash and can't account for it. This suggests a level of premeditation that goes beyond simple financial mismanagement and into the realm of calculated deception. The timing of these transactions is equally suspicious. Many of the alleged financial activities occurred during Edgar Lungu's presidency, raising uncomfortable questions about whether state resources or influence were used to facilitate these deals. The proximity to power creates an undeniable perception that public office was leveraged for private gain. Lungu's cryptic 2026 election warning. Edgar Lungu's political messaging in the lead-up to his constitutional disqualification carried an ominous undertone that has left political analysts scrambling to decode his true intentions. His warnings about the 2026 elections weren't merely campaign rhetoric. They represented a a sophisticated political strategy designed to maintain relevance despite mounting legal and constitutional challenges. The most chilling of Lungu's warnings came in February 2024, when he ominously predicted that President Hakainde Hichilema might give up power before 2026 if state police continued what he characterized as harassment of Zambians. This wasn't just political posturing, it was a carefully calibrated message that served multiple purposes simultaneously. Lungu's cryptic communication strategy revealed a politician who understood that direct confrontation with the current administration could backfire spectacularly. Instead, he chose to operate in the shadows of implication, suggesting dark possibilities without explicitly threatening the constitutional order. His warnings about quick power loss were crafted to sound like predictions rather than threats, providing plausible deniability while maximizing political impact. The former president's messaging became increasingly sophisticated as his legal troubles mounted. When faced with a constitutional court case that would ultimately bar him from the 2026 elections, Lungu began framing his situation as part of a broader assault on democracy. He accused President Hichilema of using cowardly and dirty political schemes to avoid a direct electoral confrontation, effectively positioning himself as a victim of judicial manipulation rather than constitutional process. Perhaps most revealing was Lungu's invocation of Zambia's democratic heritage. His reference to the country's hard-won independence in 1964 and its transition to multi-party democracy in 1991 wasn't mere historical nostalgia. It was a strategic attempt to wrap his personal political ambitions in the cloth of democratic legitimacy. By suggesting that his disqualification represented a betrayal of democratic principles, Lungu was essentially arguing that constitutional law should bend to political convenience. The cryptic nature of Lungu's warnings extended to his calls for early elections. Rather than directly challenging Hichilema's mandate, he framed his position as concern for ordinary Zambians suffering under economic hardship. His statement that Hichilema should justify why we must wait for 2026 polls was simultaneously a political attack and a populist appeal designed to resonate with citizens struggling with the high cost of living. HH's silent response. President Hakainde Hichilema's response to the Lungu family's legal troubles and Edgar Lungu's political provocations has been characterized by a calculated silence that speaks volumes about his political strategy. This isn't merely presidential restraint, it's a sophisticated approach to managing a potentially explosive political situation while maintaining the appearance of being above the fray. Hichilema's silence on the Esther Lungu corruption cases represents a masterclass in political positioning. Rather than engaging in public commentary about ongoing legal proceedings, the president has allowed the judicial system to operate without apparent political interference. This approach serves multiple strategic purposes. It demonstrates respect for judicial independence, avoids the appearance of political persecution, and prevents the opposition from claiming that the cases are politically motivated. However, this silence comes with significant political risks. Opposition supporters interpret Hichilema's restraint as evidence of weakness or fear of direct confrontation with the Lungu family. They argue that a truly confident leader would be more vocal about fighting corruption, regardless of who is involved. This perception of weakness could potentially mobilize opposition sentiment as the 2026 elections approach. The president's silent response strategy becomes even more complex when viewed against the backdrop of his own political vulnerabilities. Despite his electoral victory in 2021, Hichilema faces significant economic challenges that provide ammunition for his critics. High inflation, unemployment, and the cost of living have created fertile ground for opposition messaging, making it risky for him to appear distracted by political vendettas. Hichilema's silence on Edgar Lungu's cryptic warnings about early elections and potential power changes reveals a president who understands the dangers of escalation. By refusing to engage with Lungu's provocative statements, he avoids legitimizing them or giving them additional media attention. This approach demonstrates political maturity, but also raises questions about whether silence might be interpreted as inability to respond effectively. The president's strategic communication approach extends beyond simple silence to selective engagement. When he does speak about corruption or governance issues, Hichilema tends to focus on systemic reforms and institutional strengthening rather than individual cases. This allows him to address public concerns about corruption without appearing to target specific individuals or families. The president's silent response strategy ultimately reflects a broader approach to political leadership that prioritizes institutional stability over partisan advantage. Whether this approach will prove politically sustainable as the 2026 elections approach remains one of the most intriguing questions in Zambian politics. Why the Lungu family still holds power. Despite facing unprecedented legal challenges, asset forfeitures, and constitutional disqualification, the Lungu family continues to wield remarkable influence in Zambian politics. This persistence of power in the face of adversity reveals the complex nature of political influence in modern Africa, where formal positions of authority represent only one dimension of true power. The foundation of the Lungu family's enduring influence lies in their deep penetration of Zambia's political networks. During Edgar Lungu's presidency from 2015 to 2021, the family cultivated extensive relationships across multiple sectors of society. society. These connections weren't merely transactional. They represented genuine bonds of loyalty, mutual obligation, and shared interest that have proven remarkably resilient even in the face of legal adversity. Edgar Lungu's continued leadership of a faction within the Patriotic Front (PF) demonstrates how political power can transcend formal electoral success or failure. Despite losing the 2021 presidential election and subsequently being disqualified from future contests, Lungu maintains a devoted political base that views him as their legitimate leader. This loyalty suggests that his influence was never entirely dependent on occupying State House. The family's power persistence is also rooted in their control of important political narratives. By framing their legal troubles as political persecution rather than legitimate accountability measures, the Lungus have successfully maintained sympathy among their supporters. This narrative control transforms potential weaknesses into sources of strength, casting them as victims of an authoritarian system rather than subjects of legitimate investigation. Financial resources continue to play a crucial role in the family's power retention, despite asset forfeitures and legal challenges. Even with properties being seized by the state, the Lungus likely retain access to resources that weren't captured in legal proceedings. In politics, financial capability often translates directly into organizational capacity, media influence, and the ability to maintain political networks. The patronage networks established during Edgar Lungu's presidency have created a web of mutual dependence that extends far beyond the immediate family. Many individuals who benefited from PF rule during the Lungu years have strong incentives to maintain loyalty to the family, as their own fortunes may be tied to the family's political rehabilitation. This creates a constituency with material interests in the family's continued relevance. Esther Lungu's position within these power dynamics is particularly complex. While facing serious legal challenges, she simultaneously serves as a symbol of resistance to what supporters perceive as political persecution. Her legal troubles have paradoxically enhanced her political significance within opposition circles, transforming her from a former First Lady into a rallying point for anti-government sentiment. The family's power also derives from their understanding of Zambia's democratic institutions and how to operate within them. Despite being barred from electoral participation, Edgar Lungu continues to play an active role in shaping opposition strategy and coalition building. His political experience and institutional knowledge make him a valuable asset to opposition forces, regardless of his formal eligibility. Regional and traditional authority structures provide another source of enduring influence for the Lungu family. In many parts of Zambia, political loyalty operates along ethnic, regional, and traditional lines that transcend individual political careers or legal troubles. The family's connections to these deeper social structures provide them with a foundation of support that formal legal processes cannot easily erode. The bigger political game for 2026. The 2026 Zambian general election has already begun in earnest, despite being more than a year away, and the political maneuvering surrounding the Lungu family's legal troubles represents just one dimension of a much larger and more complex political game. This election will likely determine not just who leads Zambia for the next 5 years, but the very direction of the country's democratic development and its approach to governance, corruption, and accountability. President Hichilema's re-election strategy has been fundamentally shaped by the need to balance his reformist agenda with political pragmatism. His administration's pursuit of corruption cases, including those involving the Lungu family, serves multiple political purposes beyond simple accountability. By demonstrating a commitment to fighting corruption, Hichilema appeals to voters who were frustrated with governance failures during the previous administration. However, he must also avoid creating the impression that he's engaged in political persecution, which could mobilize opposition sentiment. The disqualification of Edgar Lungu from the 2026 ballot creates both opportunities and challenges for Hichilema's re-election prospects. On one hand, it removes what would likely have been his most formidable challenger, a politician with extensive experience, name recognition, and a devoted base of support. On the other hand, it allows opposition forces to frame the election as illegitimate from the outset, potentially undermining the credibility of whatever mandate Hichilema receives. For the opposition, the 2026 election presents unprecedented challenges in terms of leadership and strategy. With Edgar Lungu constitutionally barred from running, opposition forces must identify alternative leaders capable of unifying diverse anti-government sentiment. This leadership vacuum has already begun to create internal tensions within opposition ranks, as various figures position themselves as potential successors to Lungu's political legacy. The Patriotic Front's internal dynamics will likely determine much of the opposition's electoral viability in 2026. The party remains divided between those loyal to Edgar Lungu's continued leadership and those who believe the party must move beyond the former president to remain politically relevant. This internal struggle reflects broader questions about whether opposition politics should be defined by personality or policy, and whether the party can successfully rebrand itself after years of association with corruption allegations. Coalition building represents perhaps the most critical aspect of the 2026 political game. Hichilema's United Party for National Development (UPND) will seek to maintain the broad coalition that brought them to power in 2021, while opposition forces will attempt to create alternative alliances capable of challenging challenging the incumbent. The success of these coalition-building efforts may ultimately determine the election's outcome. What this means for Zambia's future. The unfolding political drama surrounding the Lungu family's legal troubles and the broader electoral dynamics shaping the 2026 contest carry profound implications for Zambia's democratic future, economic development trajectory, and social cohesion. These developments represent more than mere political theater. They constitute defining moments that will influence the country's path for generations to come. The most immediate implication concerns the health of Zambia's democratic institutions. The ability of the judicial system to process high-profile corruption cases without apparent political interference demonstrates institutional strength, but the controversy surrounding these proceedings also reveals potential vulnerabilities. If large segments of the population view judicial decisions as politically motivated, it could undermine long-term confidence in the rule of law. Zambia's approach to fighting corruption will be fundamentally shaped by how the Lungu family cases are ultimately resolved. Success in these prosecutions could establish important precedents about accountability for public officials and their families, potentially deterring future misconduct. However, if these cases fail or are perceived as unfair, it could actually embolden corruption by demonstrating the limits of accountability mechanisms. The country's economic development prospects are intimately connected to governance and corruption issues. International investors and development partners closely monitor political stability and institutional quality when making decisions about resource allocation. Zambia's ability to demonstrate effective governance and accountability could influence access to international investment and development assistance crucial for economic growth. Social cohesion represents another critical dimension of Zambia's future that could be affected by current political developments. If political competition becomes increasingly polarized around personality-driven conflicts rather than policy differences, it could deepen social divisions and undermine national unity. The ability of political leaders to maintain constructive dialogue across party lines will be crucial for social stability. The precedent being set regarding presidential term limits carries implications far beyond individual political careers. Zambia's constitutional court decision barring Edgar Lungu from future elections sends important signals about the permanence of constitutional provisions and the independence of judicial interpretation. This precedent could influence how future constitutional questions are approached and resolved. Regional leadership implications cannot be ignored, as Zambia's handling of these political challenges will be closely observed throughout southern Africa. The country has historically played an important role in regional democracy promotion, and its approach to managing political transitions and accountability could influence democratic development elsewhere in the region. The role of youth in Zambian politics is likely to be permanently altered by these developments. Younger voters, who represent an increasingly large proportion of the electorate, are observing how different political generations approach questions of governance, accountability, and democratic participation. Their conclusions about the effectiveness of different political approaches could shape voting patterns for decades. Women's political participation in Zambia may also be affected by how Esther Lungu's legal troubles are perceived and resolved. As one of the most prominent women involved in high-level politics, her experience could influence how other women view political participation and the risks associated with public life. This could have long-term implications for gender equality in political representation. Final analysis and wrap-up. The intricate web of political drama surrounding the Lungu family's legal troubles, Edgar Lungu's constitutional disqualification, and President Hichilema's strategic responses represents a pivotal moment in Zambian democratic development. This complex political narrative reveals fundamental truths about power, accountability, and democratic governance that extend far beyond individual personalities or specific legal cases. At its core, this unfolding drama demonstrates both the strengths and limitations of Zambia's democratic institutions. The ability of courts to make controversial decisions about presidential eligibility and asset forfeiture shows institutional independence, while the heated political debates surrounding these decisions reveal the challenges facing young democracies attempting to establish lasting accountability mechanisms. The Esther Lungu corruption cases, regardless of their ultimate legal outcomes, have already succeeded in establishing important precedents about how corruption allegations against high-profile political figures are handled. The very fact that these cases proceeded through the judicial system without apparent political interference represents a significant development in Zambian governance, even as critics question the motivations behind the prosecutions. Edgar Lungu's constitutional disqualification, while legally decisive, has created new political dynamics that will likely influence Zambian politics for years to come. His transformation from presidential candidate to opposition kingmaker demonstrates how political influence can transcend formal electoral participation, while also highlighting the complex relationship between legal decisions and political reality. President Hichilema's strategic silence throughout these controversies reflects a sophisticated understanding of political communication and institutional dynamics. By allowing legal processes to proceed without presidential commentary, he has maintained the appearance of institutional independence while potentially benefiting from outcomes favorable to his political interests. The persistence of the Lungu family's political influence, despite legal challenges and constitutional barriers, reveals reveals important truths about how power operates in African political contexts. Their continued relevance demonstrates that political networks, patron-client relationships, and narrative control can sometimes prove more durable than formal institutional positions.